still afraid?
Welcome to the second live episode of the Horror Podcast. This is our summer school edition, coming to you live from the Robeson Planetarium at the wonderful Harvard of the Midwest in Kirksville, Missouri, Truman State University.
I don't think they're allowed to say Harvard of the Midwest anymore.
I think they can say it.
Okay, all right, cool. Okay,
maybe they can't say it, but we can. So hey, welcome.
Harvard, sue us.
As you know us from previous times, I am Tyler Unsel. I am a high school teacher who also dabbles in the horror genre and runs a website called Signal Horizon with my buddy Mike here.
And I'm Mike. I'm your other co-host. I am a former high school history teacher who is absolutely obsessed with the horror genre, and we are joined for the first time by our friend here, Nick. Nick, introduce yourself, please.
Hi, I'm Nick McCracken. I'm a college instructor in design and business in Detroit, and also a longtime friend of Tyler, and we share an interest in the horror genre and zombies of all kinds.
Yeah, that's great. In fact, Nick has been on faculty at the Zombie Scholars Academy now for a few years. So Nick also contributes to our Patreon and loves, I think, horror literature and film as much as we do. So
absolutely.
We are incredibly stoked to have you here today,
It's a
Nick.
great honor, guys.
Hey, awesome.
Pleasure.
So why don't you lead off our first segment on what are you reading, what are you watching, what are you excited about?
What am I excited about? A couple of things. One is, I don't know if anyone's seen this. I expect maybe some of our audience has. On Netflix, Lost in Space. Have you guys seen that?
Yeah.
Just really surprised me in how good that show is. And especially the characters, the female characters, the mom who's a scientist and gets stuff done. And even the kids are interesting. All the characters are well drawn, well acted. And the robot, oh my gosh, they have done such an amazing job with that robot. Come Christmas time, any of you are parents out there, get ready, because as soon as they release that and the Jupiter 2 and the Chariot, people are going to be lining up to get those things. So it's just a heck of a lot of fun.
Yeah, it's really cool. In fact, Katie, one of our writers on Signal Horizon, reviewed it and really talked about that strong female character and how it's great to see like the matriarchal character that like cares about her family but is also willing to like get shit done and like go out of her way to be strong and aggressive leader. So
she's the scientist of the group.
Yeah,
it's fantastic.
Yeah, truly, it's a good one. Mike?
Right now I'm reading a really excellent horror anthology from Perpetual Motion Machine Publishing called Lost Films. And we were very lucky. We got an early copy. It is fantastic. It's got some great stuff from some authors that I already know and love, and some stuff from people I've never heard of before that is awesome as well. And it really fits in our wheelhouse because it's all in the theme. They're short horror stories, all in the theme of a lost film or a film kind of gone awry. You know, kind of think of like The Ring, or kind of like the film version of maybe the Necronomicon or something like that. Just a whole lot of fun.
Yeah, and some really phenomenal short fiction writers, right? Like
Gemma Files,
yeah.
Right? Gemma Files has a really excellent short story in there. There's one by Betty Rocksteady that I really like.
Yes, yeah. No, it's a great compilation. So check it out. I don't know if it's out quite yet, but we'll make sure we put it in the show notes when it is.
I think they're a couple months away, I think. But another really cool thing about it is there are really neat illustrations that kind of go along with the chapter heading of each one.
Oh,
so that was pretty cool.
That
was in the PDF.
Oh, okay.
But when you when the regular retail Kindle and EPUB versions are ready, we've been told that those will be included too. And they're really cool.
Yeah.
And great story by Bob Pastorella.
Oh yeah, right.
Yeah.
That was my favorite. So yeah,
okay,
very good. So what am I watching? I saw the newest Purge movie. I think it's called The First Purge, right? There is a reason why Blumhouse makes a killing off of these things, because it's a relatively small budget, and I really enjoyed it. I think the actors were phenomenal. And the first Purge movie started out as like this, like kind of bubblegummy. Like I even think the idea came off of Reddit, right? And I was like, what if we just suspended the rules and we'll see what happens, right? And it has really embraced this like kind of political nature that like it naturally evolved into. And the fourth film really goes for it, and I enjoyed that. It's a little on the nose. Like I said in my review, like there is this rapist at some point that like grabs the girl, right? And he's like, get her in the sewer with me. And like he's kind of like pawing at her and everything. And like she bats him off and like kicks him in the face, and then she says, "Stop trying to grab my pussy!" Right? And there is absolutely no way that was an accident, you know. So I was like, I could do with a little less of that and a little bit more, you know, I don't know, kind of tiptoeing around the corners. But it's still well worth your money to go out and see it in the theaters, and it's always kind of good to, you know, support those movies in the theater if you'd like that kind of stuff.
So do you think the movies have gotten more and more serious as they've progressed, maybe?
I don't know if I'd say they're more serious. I would say they like have embraced a very political theme. I think they still kind of have like a campy feel about it, particularly in the fight scenes and that kind of stuff. But I don't think that's a bad thing. With a little bit of focus, I think most films, you know, are better. And this one is more focused. Still keeps some of the camp, and you know, like it probably fits my particular politics pretty well. So like, I eat that up. So yeah, it is what it is.
Well, let's tell everybody about the movie we watched today. We watched a movie today with a whole bunch of high school kids, right? It
was World War Z. So Mike's previous career was in USAID and emergency management. So the lesson in Zombie 101 today was all about emergency management. And World War Z was a great way for us to kind of talk about what happens when countries don't function well together, and you know, when
international disaster assistance kind of falls apart, when people, you know, don't share information possibly as much as they should have. You know, we're looking at some particular countries that didn't do that in World War Z. And then how the response kind of later does come back together again. So it's cool. So tell them a little bit about Zombie Scholars Academy in case they don't know about it. Just because I think it is such a cool idea and concept, and this is the first time that Nick, it's not your first time, but it's my first time being able to come and present something. I was just super stoked about it. I love the idea. Let's tell them a little bit more about it.
Sure. So Zombie 101 is actually now a product of JBA, which is the Joseph Baldwin Academy, offered through Truman State University. It's offered to any 8th, 9th, 10th grade student, or soon to be 8th, 9th, 10th grade student. They essentially pick a specialty, like a class that they want to take, and then they are here for 3 weeks. And I have 8 contact hours a day with these kids talking about zombies, doing zombie stuff. Like yesterday we were out on the quad building, you know, emergency shelters and that kind of stuff. But it's a blast, man. Like,
but the foundation of it, right? The whole way that something like this works is the zombie as a metaphor is so elastic, right?
Yeah.
It can go from fitting your talk this morning about USAID, which was fascinating, and the global elements of that, to, you know, talking about the films, or talking about the books, or talking about critical thinking, or debating who would be the first person that you'd throw out of the shelter in a zombie apocalypse. So there's a lot of room to move in that subject.
Sure.
Yeah. And just to use genre in general as a touchstone for teaching kids is super fun. It's super fun and very effective. Very effective.
Well, I mean, the fact that we have canonized particular film and literature and that kind of stuff, we've always kind of found problematic, particularly when it limits the amount of genre fiction that we use in the classroom. So any way that we can use it, the kids are like, oh my gosh, this is something new, and you know, this is something maybe we see all the time, right? And like, particularly with today's movie, they were really engaged, but they were engaged around the idea, like, oh, these countries did this really well, these countries didn't do that. So if you give them that lesson, it's a wonderful like backbone in which to build what we would say traditional, you know, pedagogical technique or whatever. So Yeah.
I think everybody out there heard pedagogical technique and they just fell asleep.
Right.
Yeah,
Hey,
right.
so if
But
you
we
fell
got-
asleep, hey,
We got some prizes to give away today.
yeah.
Prizes.
Yeah.
So here's how it's going to work, okay? I'll present you the prize, and then Professor McCracken, Nick over here, is going to tell you a trivia question. The first person. I
remember the first trivia
Oh,
question
very good.
for the
Perfect.
pencil.
So the first person to comment with a correct answer on our live feed, we will DM you, and we will totally send this to you. No charges, no nothing. It is what it is. So we're just glad that you're here. Spread the news that we're talking all things zombies today. So
It would be super cool if when you get it, you maybe take a picture of it and tweet it out or put it on your Facebook.
Absolutely.
yes.
Or put it on MySpace or whatever you happen to be
Your
using.
Zynga.
Now. Your
Yeah.
Zynga, yeah. I've got a Zoom that takes pictures. It's awesome. Okay.
Yeah.
All right.
All right.
What's our first one?
All right. First thing, right? I have Freddy versus Jason cookie cutter pack. All right. So
Who doesn't like Freddy versus Jason?
right,
Cookies.
Right.
Yeah.
So on top, you got, maybe I'll bring it a little bit closer so we can see here. We have Freddy on top, Jason on bottom. It's great for Halloween cookies. It's great for all kinds of stuff. Not only will you win that, but I have this.
But wait, there's more.
Right. I had no idea when I bought a website I'd be doing infomercials. But we have the super, super cool Nosferatu pin presented by Horror Block. You can check out the backside there. Horror Block has been kind enough to donate this. So,
Thank you.
yeah, absolutely. So here is your question, Professor McCracken.
Oh, we're all familiar with the famous horror zombie film Night of the Living Dead. In what year was Night of the Living Dead released?
Year that Night of the Living Dead was released.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
All right.
First
And
person
all
to
of
comment.
that can be yours.
Yes, right. We will get with you immediately after this and DM you and say, hey, you won. And you'll tell us where to ship it, hopefully. So
Yep. Good stuff.
cool. You want to move on to the next segment, Mike?
Sure. What's the next segment? I forgot.
The next segment is Creepy Corners of the Web. Or some free stuff. Free
Okay,
stuff. for
Free
everybody.
stuff. Free stuff. Okay. We like to do Creepy Corners of the Web because it's free and because
Yes.
we like to support particularly I like short horror fiction. So
Yeah,
I'm
yeah.
always out
You
there
were saying that last night?
picking out short horror
Mhm.
fiction. There is a story on I don't think we've ever had a story from Lightspeed magazine before.
No.
Lightspeed magazine, a lot of science fiction, but genre stuff in general. Tenerife Do has a story on there called Patient Zero. So
Ooh.
go to Lightspeed magazine. I think they have a search bar. You can just Google Patient Zero Lightspeed magazine, and you can read that story absolutely for free. It's very good.
So is Patient Zero a zombie?
I don't want to give it away, Tyler.
All right,
Come
all
on
right,
now.
all right.
Come on
Short
now.
story.
It's
Don't
you
ruin
know,
I know.
you know.
Yeah,
I mean,
we've been like spoiling each other's crap for like the
I
last
know.
2 days.
I know it's
We'll be
terrible.
like, oh, great. I guess I won't read that now because you told me exactly what happens. So, very good. So, today's format, traditionally we take a movie and then we look at some of the lessons and some of the theory and the ideas around some of the concepts in the film. Today we're doing something a little bit different. Since we have our good friend Nick here and it's a very special zombie episode, we are going to draft our favorite zombie pop culture things. They can be short stories, they can be full-length novels, they can be movies, they can be video games, they can be even crap that we haven't even thought about, all right? But we're going to take turns going from, our first draft pick all the way to our fifth draft pick. So by the end, we'll have a list of 15 pop culture zombie things that you should totally check out. Who wants to go first?
I think you should.
Oh man! All right.
And you got to write them down so we don't do.
I got
oh,
it
you
right
got
here,
them? Okay,
right here.
fantastic.
All right. This is a lot of pressure. I don't know.
Drum roll.
Okay, my number one. No surprise probably to these two, but my favorite short story of all time is by Dan Simmons of The Terror, which was a phenomenal show on AMC. Really, really good. He's got a short fiction horror zombie story called This Year's Class Picture. And it has a whole lot to say about teaching, has a whole lot to say about like teachers creating zombies and potentially freeing zombies, and it's just a phenomenal piece of literature. And now this is like the 6th year we have done some version of Zombie 101, and I've taught it to both faculty and to students, and everybody eats it up. So it's a phenomenal piece of fiction. Thank you, Dan Simmons, for continuing to produce great stuff, and you know, for helping out teachers like me.
Related to that, we were talking last night about a wonderful short story collection called Book of the Dead by Skip Inspector. I believe this year's class picture is in that collection. I could be wrong. It's been a while since I read it, but I think it's in that collection as well.
Yeah, it's in a few, but yes, that's where I got it out of. So,
yeah, it's wonderful.
Yeah, it is. It's an excellent collection. All right, Mikey.
All right. I am going to go back to the very first zombie movie that scared the bejesus out of me, and that was the original Night of the Living Dead.
Okay.
This is my first experience with horror when I was probably 5 years old. I lived out in the middle of nowhere in this old farmhouse out in Illinois.
Right. I never knew that.
And my father watched this in the middle of the night, and I snuck down the stairs, and I peeked around the corner, and I watched the whole movie. And I think he knew, in hindsight, he knew that I was watching it. And it scared the crap out of me. And I didn't sleep for like weeks. So yeah. The original Night of the Living Dead, and we haven't had anybody answer our trivia question yet. You get free stuff if you can tell us the year that came out.
Yep.
Just put it in the comments.
Yep. It is an older film. It is black and white. I show it every year at Zombie Camp, and I always worry, like, oh man, are my kids gonna they're gonna be bored by this, or they're not gonna like it? But they always respond positively to it. They always get like all the kind of socio-political stuff that comes along with it. So, dude, it's a great place to start.
It is.
It would have probably been my number 2.
Okay.
And I think the film is now technically in sort of public domain, right?
It is, yeah.
Really?
Right? Because it was never copyrighted as Night of the Living Dead.
Yep.
It was, I believe the original title was Night of Anubis.
Right.
And then they changed the title and never put a copyright on it when it was released. And so it's on YouTube, I think.
Yeah. You can type into YouTube right now.
Yeah, if you want to watch it tonight, or if you're a teacher in class and you want to show it in class, have at it.
There's really no reason not to.
Absolutely.
There's a little bit of like gore and that kind of stuff, but it's
kids can handle it. I think.
Right. Oh, totally, 100%. Another interesting thing about that movie, they never say zombies in it.
Right. I think the word is ghoul.
The ghouls are coming. Yeah. So we think of it as the first zombie film, despite the fact they never call it zombie. Pretty cool. Yeah. All right, Nick, what's your number 1?
Well, you left the field wide open for me, guys, and now I've got to take Dawn of the Dead.
Yeah, that's a good one.
1978, and I remember seeing that at a theater in Detroit. You had to go to like a midnight movie to see it because it was an unrated film. It would have gotten an X rating, supposedly for violence, and the decision was made to release it independently. So it was a very successful independent movie. And I remember going into that theater with my buddy, Todd, at that time, full of trepidation as to what we were going to see because of the reputation of this film. And it didn't disappoint. But as years have gone on, I think it really is a keystone to the canon of zombie films, with all of the themes that are going on and the way that Romero just stepped up his game. I think, Tyler, you and I have probably seen that film a dozen times, and we never get tired of seeing it. Yeah. So I would heartily recommend that, just for the satirical components about consumerism and hiding out in a mall and protecting property above else. And as always with Romero's movies, it's not the zombies that are the most dangerous factor in the film. It's the people. And the people fighting over property is what kind of causes the end game in the film.
Yeah, right. And like, I think it taps into that idea, like, oh my gosh, I would love to be alone in the mall, and like there are just really great scenes where they kind of frolic in the joy of having access to all of this stuff, despite the fact that the world is falling apart, on the outside. I as a kid, like that would, I don't know, it would be like a kid in the candy store, quite literally.
And you have to remember how relatively new the concept of going to the mall and hanging out as a kid was.
Right.
The first shopping malls appeared in the 1950s in the United States, but it was still a big thing. And that mall in particular was one of the newer malls in the Pittsburgh area. So.
Yeah, and pretty good size. Yeah. Unfortunately, like every mall has mall cancer now for the most part. So like our beloved Metro North Mall that Michael and I grew up with is just a relic. I think it's all but torn down now.
Except for like Macy's or something like that. And now they use it to park overflow from I think the Ford plant.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, I think so.
Yeah, it's no fun.
So our comments on our computer there have stopped scrolling. So I've got our comments right here.
Oh,
on my
love
iPad.
it. Hey,
perfect. So I think we might have missed if anybody correctly guessed our.
No problem. We'll come back.
We'll come back.
Yeah, we can come back.
We can come back to it. All right, cool. Okay, good stuff. Next up, second round draft pick, Tyler Unsell. What are you going for?
Okay, I am going to pick. You may recognize a reoccurring theme here. There is a lesser-known zombie film came out a couple years ago. It's a British film. It's really, really good. Also has a lot to say about how we teach, what it is to be a teacher, and what it is to give yourself over to all of that. It is the tremendous The Girl with All the Gifts. Based off of a YA novel that, believe it or not, a couple of kids here at Zombie 101 had read before. It's really, the source material is excellent, but I think it's one of those few films where the movie is actually even better than the source material. So it's really good. The lead actress is like this 11, 12-year-old girl. I didn't write her name down, but she is phenomenal. The soundtrack is very kind of creepy, very subtle, right? It's not overly bombastic. It's just a great little movie, and I don't mean little. It's got a good sized cast, but it just feels tight, like it is a quick movie, quick little movie. So it's excellent. Check out The Girl with All the Gifts. It's my number 2.
All right. Well, Tyler, you started out with a short story. I'm going to go with a short story. This is my absolute favorite zombie short story of all time. It's by John Langan. It's called How the Day Runs Down. And it can be found. I'm not sure exactly where it was originally printed in. It was like about 10 years old, but it can be found in his one of his collections called The Wide Carnivorous Sky, which is one of the coolest names for a book ever. Yeah, and you can get that if you do Kindle Unlimited. You can get that off of Kindle Unlimited.
Oh, really?
I mean, it's unbelievable. You can get that off Kindle Unlimited. When I found that on Kindle Unlimited, I did a little dance because John Langan stuff is really, really good. Now, How the Day Runs Down is the best way to describe it is the play Our Town with zombies.
Yeah.
And so it gives you this, and I never really liked Our Town. Did you like Our Town?
Oh, I mean, it's
yeah.
Like I was a theater major for half a minute, and I think like a prerequisite is that you like sign a copy of Our Town in Blood and like, promise to always talk about how great it is. So, yeah, I mean.
Okay, so it sounds a little bit hokey at first, and then John Langan slowly and steadily ratchets up the emotion of all things, and he is a guy that can really get an emotion, which is amazing for kind of a horror writer that does a lot of cosmic horror, that he can get an emotion like that.
Yeah.
And it is really, really good, and it deserves you checking it out. And if you do Kindle Unlimited, you get like the first month for free.
Yeah.
Right.
And
you can go read it. Hopefully, it's still on there on Kindle Unlimited.
Yeah. So. But it is it's written like a play, right? Mm-hmm. It's not just that it's like an Our Town knockoff, like. That it is written from the perspective that there are actors that are playing a part. There is a narrator, I believe, that has a part. Yeah. And the ending is absolutely soul freaking crushing, which shouldn't, surprise you if you've read a lot of John Langan. I get it. But it is really, really good.
I seem to recall Signal Horizon did a piece about stuff that's really good that's available on Kindle Unlimited too, as I recall.
We did, yeah. And Kindle Unlimited is one of those things it's kind of difficult to navigate when you first get it because there is so much. There's so much content on there, and it's kind of purposely not very easy to sort through. But once you start finding that good stuff, and then once you start finding good stuff, Amazon's going to start showing you more good stuff.
Yeah.
So you kind of get on this roll, and then pretty soon your whole life is devoted to reading stuff on Kindle Unlimited.
The algorithm gets it. Yeah, very good. That's awesome. That's a great pick. What do you got for us, Nick? What's your number 2?
I'm going to go with another movie because it's birth, movies, and death.
Yeah, I got it. I dig the T-shirt. Yeah. Totally.
Shaun of the Dead.
Oh, that was going to be on my list.
Edgar Wright's Shaun of the Dead, and again, that's a film that we've seen a lot. And like Dawn of the Dead, for me, it has a ton of repeat viewing pleasure. It's well acted, it's well written. It's one of the few films I know of that strikes that really delicate balance between elements that are really scary and elements that are really funny.
Yeah.
And elements that are touching,
Yes,
too.
absolutely. That movie's got a ton of heart.
Yeah, so the film, and we talk about this in Zombie Scholars Academy, is really a mixture of multiple types of genres or stories. There's really something in there for everyone, from a romantic comedy story to a self-discovery story to a heroic story to, of course, zombies. And who doesn't like that? And if you don't like the original gag at the beginning of the film where Sean wakes up and takes his trip out the house to go to work, and how that's repeated once the zombie holocaust has occurred, then you can stop watching the movie because you really won't enjoy the rest of it. But I think 99.9% of people will find it a great entertaining experience.
You got some red on you.
I do.
Oh, yeah, you're right.
Very good, very good. Well, we're kind of close to halfway through, so maybe we got to give something else away? What do you think?
Let's give something else away. Let's give something else away.
Okay.
We're giving away stuff here, people.
Yes, come on, man. Come on. So right now, the next prize that we're going to give away, I have a great copy of Paranormal Activity 3 on Blu-ray. Comes with all kinds of special features and an ultraviolet code. You can probably give that to somebody. I don't know. All you have to do is be the first one to answer question number 2. Question number two. You want me to read it? You want to go?
I don't care.
It's in front of me. We'll go. Which 1932 film is kind of considered to be the first real zombie film? All you have to do is type the correct answer underneath it, and you will totally win this. We will DM you to get your address so that we can make sure that we send it to you as soon as possible. I will even send it to you live from Zombie 101.
You'll get it straight from the source.
Yeah, right? Like it might even have a Truman State little tag on it. So, very good. All right. So number 3, boys, what do you think?
You're up.
I am up. All right.
Yep.
So my number 3 is pretty easy. It is a book that I have probably read cover to cover a dozen times. It is Max Brooks' World War Z. I say book because I definitely mean book and not the movie. Not that I hate the movie. In fact, we watched the movie in class. Yeah. It's fine, but it is not the glowing master work that Max Brooks' World War Z is. He perfectly captures that kind of oral history novel that like Studs Terkel produced a whole ton of. Like, I feel those characters, I see those characters, and he really does a great job of pointing out how post-apocalyptic wish fulfillment is not great. Like a lot of what we will all go through, if and when that happens, is really awful and terrible, and we shouldn't probably hope that it will happen anytime soon. So what do you guys think? Have you both read that, right?
Mm-hmm. It's fantastic. All right. World War Z, absolutely fantastic. There's a couple of there's a couple of points that he makes in there that I don't think are usually reflected in horror fiction, right? I think one of them is this idea that is similar to World War II, right? Where everybody had to like come together and do something together, and people had to sacrifice together, which I think is pretty cool.
Oh yeah.
I also love the oral history element of it. You mentioned Studs Terkel, and I'm a big Studs Terkel fan.
Yeah.
So if anyone has read World War Z and you like it and you haven't checked out Studs Terkel, definitely check him out. Books like The Good War, for instance,
that's the one.
Right? Are working. If you're going to learn something, and you're going to have a heck of a fun time doing it, because he just has a wonderful way of getting people to talk about themselves, real everyday people, and to make it super compelling. So.
For sure.
That's off to Studs.
Yeah, absolutely. Good. Great novels all around. Mike, what's your number 3?
Number 3, I'm going to go with a video game this time.
Yeah, all right. Let's go.
Right. I'm going to go with one of the original survivor horror video games, which is Resident Evil, the original.
All right.
Because it starts as a zombie
video
game, right? it kind of evolves into a little bit more body horror and just general weirdness.
Yeah.
But it really set the stage for the whole survival horror genre, right? And I think it really got a lot of people jazzed about zombies, right? And
Sure.
and I think it really started a lot of the zombie video games. I mean, you can't or you can't swing a dead cat without finding a zombie video game. Now,
That's true.
Resident
They
Evil.
had, they had zombie dogs, right? They had zombie dogs.
Zombie
the
dogs,
original zombie
absolutely.
dogs.
And then the movies too.
Right. And I mean, the movies gave rise to Mila Jovovich, right?
Mm-hmm. Well, she was
So-
around before that.
I know, but
really,
like as that kind of
she is now
titular,
an icon in the horror
cool,
film.
man. And we'll forgive me.
Okay. Look, I never liked any of the movies, but
I mean, they're okay.
The video games were.
I mean, the movies are fun. Like, I mean, don't shit on the movies. They're okay, right?
Yeah.
But also with, I think,
That's okay.
Thanks.
you can like one without liking the other.
Yeah.
No, we can't. Nick.
You
No, we
like things
can't.
I don't like.
Get out. I like them both. But I think there was something about Resident Evil. It was the first first game, right? That started what became or was called the genre of survival horror, right? Where the aim of the game is not to necessarily amass points, but just to survive to the end of the game.
Exactly.
And
exactly.
especially in the beginning, like every shotgun shell is important,
Yes.
right? I mean, it kind of gives you that feeling that I think it was the first time I ever got that feeling of like, oh my gosh, this is important. I just got this thing. It's important. I need to use it wisely, or else
like
somebody like zombies going to get me.
Scarcity of resources.
Well, there was an arcade version game that came out earlier that was called House of the Dead. I think.
Yeah.
And that was a first-person shooter where you had no ability to control where you went. You were just sort of, it was a light gun, and you were shooting the zombies, and then you'd have to reload. When Resident Evil came out, I remember playing that for the first time. You know, you got some guns, you got some ammo, and here comes some zombies. You start blasting them away, and if you used all your ammo up, you were dead because you didn't have enough ammo to kill all the zombies. So it was a combination of strategy and sometimes shooting or sometimes using the right weapon and all that stuff that elevated that whole game to a totally different
Now, and talk about a great film. House of the Dead was didn't they make that into a?
I don't
they
think
did.
Really?
It was garbage.
This is the one where you do need to leave.
That movie.
No,
was garbage.
that's tongue firmly in cheek.
Very good. All right.
My turn again, right?
Your turn, yeah. Oh, do we have an answer?
I think we do.
Yes, and I think that answer is correct.
Yeah, that answer is correct. The correct answer is White Zombie. I believe that the first person to come out with White Zombie was Jan Harding.
All right.
So congratulations. We will DM you in a little bit, and
we got it.
And we'll get your contact information. And Tyler won't stalk you, we promise. And get your copy of
Paranormal Activity 3.
Yep.
Hey,
on
great.
Blu-ray
Yeah.
with the ultraviolet DVD code.
Yeah, right.
Yep.
All that jazz. Very
All
good
that stuff.
Yep.
All right.
I'm going to take us in another direction. We
Do
went from a book to a video game. I'm going to talk about a movie soundtrack.
Okay.
Goblin score for Dawn of the Dead.
All right.
So in the zombie world of movie scores, I think there's nothing that compares in my mind to the score for the 1978 Dawn of the Dead film.
Yeah.
It was a rock band that had originally been, I think, called Cherry 5. And then they changed their name to Goblin, and they started working with Dario Argento, the horror filmmaker.
Oh, cool. All right. I did not know that.
Some people may not know that Dario Argento and George Romero spent some time in Rome before Dawn of the Dead was made, kind of working out that storyline. And I'm sure it was partially Argento's influence that brought in Goblin, and that combination of synthesizers and guitars and sometimes sort of throbbing rock music propelling that storyline along was just fantastic. So if you see the film and you like the soundtrack, there are versions of that soundtrack available in all different formats that you can access. So you definitely should give that a listen.
Yeah, and it is very much like iconic and of that era, and I mean that in a really positive way. You know, like it's super good stuff. And I'd forgotten that Argento had such a good relationship with him, and you know, it is amazing how good stuff continually recycles, right? Like, because the new Suspiria is about to come out here in about 6 months, and I've already seen some of the stills and trailers for that, and it looks terrifying. So
and for me, there's 3 keystones or touchstones that are Goblin scores. One is Dawn of the Dead, one is Suspiria, and one is Deep Red or Profondo Rosso. And all 3 of those scores are spectacular. In fact, Deep Red was on charted in Italy for a while. It was such a popular soundtrack.
Yeah, very good, very good. So you mentioned Dawn of the Dead twice now. What did you think of the remake?
I'm okay with the remake. I think that there's some really great elements of the remake because, in a way, like World War Z is compared to its original source material. Zack Snyder, when he made the Dawn of the Dead, the remake, it turned it into a lot of an action film.
Yeah.
The first 12 minutes of the film before the credits really roll are spectacular.
Oh, they really are.
And there's other pieces throughout the film that are equally good. What do I say? I like all of the movie? No. But do I like the movie? Yes.
Yeah, it's totally worth a watch. Yeah. Mike, you like it?
I love it.
Yeah?
Yeah, it's got zombies in it. I like all the zombies in it.
Very good, very good, very good. All right, I guess we are to number 4 then, eh? Number 4. You guys have taken a lot of good stuff off the board.
Sorry about that.
Man.
Let's see what we got here.
I know.
Yeah.
I think so. I've been holding on to one, and it's gonna appear light, and it's not. It's kind of to counterbalance the heaviness of every other pick that I've got on the board. But it's a movie that I watch every time I see that it's on. It's a movie that we watch here at Zombie 101, mostly because it kind of teaches some kids the rules of filmmaking, the rules of making a fun movie. So my number 4, Zombieland. And it doesn't hurt that they announced the sequel today, right? They got all 4 of the leads back in, which I think is going to be really incredible, right? Because they've all kind of gone off and done their own thing. Some of them big, some of them not so big. In fact, I think all of them have had pretty significant feature films since then.
Yes.
So the fact that they got them all back together to reprise these kind of roles of these iconic characters, I think is awesome. So it's funny. So just like Shaun of the Dead, it doesn't take itself too serious, right? The zombies are over the top and goofy and kind of funny. The settings are amazing. That whole fight scene at the end when they're in that particular theme park, it's just, I don't know. It's a classic, I think. So my number 4, Zombieland.
All right.
What's also interesting about Zombieland is just the meta commentary on zombie movies that takes place in it.
Yeah. Zombie movies, scary movies in general. Yeah. Like it's got almost like when it lays out those rules, it's almost like Scream. Like those.
Or like Cabin at the.
Cabin in the Woods. Yeah. And I like if there's anything I love more than like watching horror movies, it's like watching horror movies about horror movies or talking about them. So
or talking about movies that are about horror movies that are about horror movies where people are talking about horror movies. Meta. So do we want to give away something else?
Yeah, we could totally give away something else.
So we have a question here, a trivia question from Zombieland. So let's do that one. Yeah.
Okay, cool.
Okay.
What do you want to give away this time? Save this one for the end?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. All right. So in a previous episode of the Horror Podcast, we talked about one of our favorite books, and it is House of Leaves. So we will give away a brand new copy of House of Leaves to the first person that will answer this question about Zombieland. Mike, you read this one.
What is the name of the theme park that they're trying to get to in Zombieland?
First person, again, we'll check it out in the comments. Just comment below. We'll find the first person. We will DM you later tonight. That way we can figure out where to send the book to. But hopefully, when you get it, take a picture of it, tweet back at Signal Horizon or at the Horror Podcast. Say thanks for the book. That's all we ask in response.
And this is a really awesome book.
Yeah.
So,
and isn't there a podcast of just about that book?
Yeah.
There sure is.
There's a previous episode where we kind of just dissect that book it's just a lot to take.
There's a lot of dissection that can be done on this particular book.
Like I think ours is like an hour and 15 minutes, and like that's a tenth of probably what you could go into. So
yeah.
There's also a really cool book club on Facebook that you should join when you get this book, whoever answers this question.
And have read it.
Yeah, right. Don't join it until you read it. That would suck. You're going to have some stuff spoiled. So
Kevin mentioned the answer to the question is not Euro Disney.
yes,
It's
not
Euro
Euro
Disney.
Disney.
Not
No,
Euro Disney.
no. There's no Mickey
Which
Mouse.
I think is called Disneyland Paris.
Right. It hasn't been Euro Disney since 1984, Kevin. Come on.
Yeah. All right. My next draft pick is going to be nobody has 28 days later yet.
No.
Oh, that's
Yeah,
great.
Except you.
Yeah.
I got it. I got 28
Yes,
days later.
that's good.
If you're drafting all the best zombie stuff, you got to get 28 days later in there. They brought out a lot of stuff that made it new, that made it fresh. It's just an all around, just really well put together movie.
Yeah.
It's super scary.
It is.
The idea that I don't know if it's probably not the first movie to do this, but the idea to like that the zombies are not caused by something like supernatural. It's caused by this virus that we created in a lab somewhere.
Yeah.
That's pretty creepy.
Yeah.
Right.
Oh, it is.
The zombies are super creepy.
Mhm.
They move super fast.
Mhm.
It's got a great sequel too. I mean, so that it's got a lot of great stuff going for it.
It's excellent. Yeah.
Another film that we've shown at ZSA over the years.
Oh, really?
Yes. Yeah.
One of the first films to be shot on digital video.
I did not know that. Huh?
And also, really, I think if you spend any time in England, the scenes that are shot in London, where the main character walks through totally empty London streets, is so creepy and disturbing. And the way they have to achieve that is they could only shoot for maybe 2 minutes at a time because literally they were stopping traffic in downtown London.
Yeah. There are two scenes that I think are iconic. The scene where he walks into the church, right?
Mm-hmm.
And that's not really a spoiler by any stretch of the imagination. But like he doesn't see anything because they're all like kind of sleeping and they're kind of dormant, and he like knocks something over, and then they all like wake up, and it is to this day one of the scariest scenes I think in any scary movie that I've ever seen. It's so well done. There is also, I'm not going to reveal it because there may be some people that haven't seen the film. Go see it because it is really that good. The scene with the family at the end of the film, like still breaks my heart. And every time that we would see it at ZSA, we would have kids that would say like, "Oh no," like, and they would just like.
I've been watching people be ripped apart.
Right. Then they were like hard kids, man, that had been a week through zombie camp. They're already, and they like that broke them, and it's because it is just, it's not a good zombie film. It's just a good film in general.
Mm-hmm.
So yeah, it's good.
Yeah, made by Danny Boyle.
Yes.
Who is making the next James Bond movie?
I did not
Really?
know that.
Yes.
All right.
Oh,
Danny Boyle, huh?
Very
good.
exciting.
All right.
It's going to be a total reboot?
My lips are sealed.
Okay.
Oh, so it's back to me now.
Back to you. Yep.
I am gonna pick. Let's go back to the books again and talk about The Rising by Brian Keene.
Okay.
So around the same time in the early 2000s, a couple of things came out about the same time. One of them was the comic book series that we now know as The Walking Dead. And another thing around the same time was Brian Keene's The Rising. And this is a very unique zombie book because the zombies have a degree of sentience. They can talk. And it's sort of a cross-country story adventure. It's about a father who receives a phone call which indicates that his son, who was with his ex-wife, may still be alive during the zombie holocaust, and about his attempt to get back to his son throughout this entire book. So there's a lot of autobiographical elements that elevate this story too, and Keene's been very straightforward in talking about that, but it was his first major novel, and it was just another important zombie text. If you like that book, I would say there's an even better book that's a ghost story he wrote called The Girl on the Glider.
Okay.
And that's sort of almost a meta book that's as much about being a horror writer and writing as it is about a ghost story. So that's a little novelette. You could read it in an evening at home very easily. Both of those are great suggestions.
Cool. Awesome.
One last thing, I know that the author was injured in a home accident recently, so I think there's a GoFundMe page too. So if any of our folks have read his books or interested in checking them out or just supporting horror, I'm sure that they would appreciate whatever you want to do for them.
Very good. I'm that's completely foreign to me, so I'll have to go check it out.
Yeah.
Okay. Mm-hmm. Awesome. All right, you want to do everybody's 5, and then we'll give the last thing away. Yeah, sounds
Yeah,
good.
so
Let's
we're
do
up
it.
to
Let's do it. Yeah.
13, 14, 15 now.
All right, so
Yep.
last ones, guys. All right. So I really like this. It's film. I feel bad that 4 of mine were film. They probably should have done a better job of mixing it up. But I like it because my first passion is language. My first degree was in communication. I'm fascinated by the way language builds concepts and builds reality, and I think no film does it with as much nuance and weirdness and fun as Pontypool. So my number 5 is the film Pontypool, which is essentially a Canadian film, all about the zombies taking over the small town of Pontypool, essentially. And they don't do it through bite necessarily. They do it through a collective use of language. So it is an incredibly small film. It takes place almost entirely in like a DJ booth, right, in this radio station in Pontypool as they try to figure out what the right thing to do is. It's such a small film that they've turned it into a stage play. In fact, it was in Kansas City a while
It was,
ago,
yeah.
So, yeah. So it was at I think the Fringe Film Festival, and then it ran independently for a while. It's super cool.
Yeah.
And really interesting, and it has a whole lot to say about how language can shape our reality. So my final one for tonight, Pontypool.
All right.
And Pontypool, in case anyone's wondering about the title, refers to the town that the story takes place in.
Correct.
So
Correct.
I think it's based on a short story called "It Started in Pontypool" or something like that. Yeah.
And there were supposed to be 3 films, like 3 stories with 3 films, and they all got progressively more weird. And one of the things that I think all of us have talked about in the last few days is the idea that some horror turns into bizarro, which is this kind of fringe horror subgenre. And like the last 2 films are most definitely, or at least by their description, they sound bizarro. So yeah, they sound really weird. So
all right. Number 5 for me. You guys will have to be the judge of whether this counts, but I have to go with the original book, I Am Legend.
All right, yeah.
All right. So, by Richard Masterson, right?
Matheson.
That's
yes,
it, Matheson.
yes.
The kind of book that I picked up and read all in one go. And I rarely do that. I pick up a book and just don't put it down until I'm absolutely done with it. It has got maybe not exactly what you would call your prototypical zombie, but it plays with definitely a lot of the same tropes. And you could call them zombies. I think he calls them ghouls or something like that. It was written, I think, before, it might have even been written before Night of the Living Dead. So it's very early. And there's an excellent turn in it, and it's got just all of that post-apocalyptic. It's almost like the prototypical post-apocalyptic novel.
What? And I think it was the basis for like Omega Man, right?
Yeah,
it was the basis originally for Last Man on Earth with Vincent Price.
Okay.
And then later Charlton Heston's The Omega Man, and then again Will Smith's version of it,
which was garbage. Yeah. So I mean,
so get out.
Yeah. Yeah, and the other thing that always got me about reading that book was that I was pretty young when I first read it. It's got a lot of kind of action in it. It's got a lot of this like gritty survivalism type of thing to it.
Yeah, it does. Absolutely.
And then the ending just hits you like a ton of bricks.
It does.
And
rips your heart out.
and it just
stomps all over it.
And you think, because you've got like 3/4 of a novel that is very like, I don't know, like appeals to like young dudes.
It's very Charlton Heston.
Heston-ish,
yeah.
And then it's got this turn, and then you're like, oh man, he got me. He got me.
Yeah, right. He did. So. Yeah, he had it coming.
Mine. I think I Am Legend is a great one, and I think the first year of the ZSA we taught that too.
Yeah. Oh yeah. We taught some of the comic. I think actually.
I would say we can't leave this top 15 without mentioning The Walking Dead, but I want to mention the graphic novel,
Absolutely.
The Walking Dead. So I encountered Walking Dead in the early 2000s because I'm a comic book fan too, and I was in my favorite comic book store, and the salesperson said, you have to read this. You have to read this. And it was one of the collected sets, the very first one. And I sat down. It was a wintry day in a coffee shop and read this thing and was totally blown away, just through the art, the level of realism, the characterization. And in that particular book, even though this didn't happen, as spoiler alert, until the second season in the TV series, the first arc of the comic ends with Shane being killed by Carl. And just a great story, still going strong as a comic book. So even though there's a TV series and a comic book, you can have both, and they have storylines that have diverged from each other. So lots of great stuff to enjoy out there.
With the comic book, what was like? Because there's a lot of new ground that I think that the comic book kind of got to. And
I would say one of the things about it was when Robert Kirkman pitched this comic to Image, there wasn't a lot of history of successful zombie comics out there, or even zombie TV shows at that point. Mm-hmm. And they asked him, well, what is the cause of this zombie virus? And he kind of said, oh, well, it'll be space aliens. And he didn't necessarily have the idea for that, but it was pitched as the zombie story that never ends. And so this notion of a story that just keeps going and going and going. When you watch a 2-hour film, there's a denouement, there's a closure. When you have a serial narrative like this, you're into the hundreds of issues, thousands of pages of material, and it just keeps continuing. So I think that was one of the elements that really broke it apart.
Yeah, it's great. It's really, really good. Particularly those early issues.
So there's been a shout out in the comments to a film that we missed.
Yes,
that is
super
good.
I was gonna offer it in my honorable mention. I missed it. I missed it.
We should know who gave us a shout out, shouldn't we?
It was I think it was Nicole.
Yes, Nicole Billings gave us a shout out for the movie The Battery. And The Battery is a phenomenal film. Talk about a small film. It just has 2 actors in it.
Plus a bunch of zombies.
Plus a bunch of zombie extras or whatever. But it is a phenomenal character study, right?
Yeah.
Because the long and the short of it is zombie apocalypse happens, right? And there are these 2 like minor league baseball players, a pitcher and a catcher, and they are trying to navigate their ways from New England, I think, back to the Midwest, essentially. But it is about the evolution of their relationship. Like what the relationship looked like before, what it looks like now, how they struggle with it. And it really, really is just an incredible 90 minutes. I mean, it is super tight, super good. But like a lot of the things we've talked about, a gut punch.
It is.
Like a gut punch. So, but an excellent film. You got to check it out.
Yeah. And it's like, I don't know, if you're going to make a small movie like that, that's kind of where you got to go, right? Because if you try to do too much special effects, you're gonna overextend. You're gonna go beyond your budget, right? But you can do some really great work with acting. Believe it or not, you can act in a movie and people like it. So.
And it is a micro budget, man. I mean, it really is tiny. So
I'm actually a believer in constraints leading to creativity.
Absolutely.
Yes.
There's a film called 5 Obstructions. It's not a horror film, but it's by Lars von Trier, the director. And he had studied under another director, and he went to his teacher and said, we're going to make 5 movies together, and I'm going to give you rules or obstructions for each of these movies you're going to make. And so it's just a fascinating idea that having limitations leads to some really creative stuff.
Yeah.
And then this movie is a great example of that. So check it out. It's The Battery. I think it came out maybe 4 or 5 years ago, but
I think it's older than that.
Yeah, maybe. Yeah, it could be. But totally great movie. All right, we got one last giveaway.
I was going to say, do you want to recap the list at the end for everybody, or just
Yeah.
Okay.
Let's everybody recap their own list, and then we can have everybody vote. What do you think about that?
Like
for a winner.
Oh, like
we got to win.
Ooh, yes. All right, fair. Okay, so put the list in the middle because I don't want to get mine out of order here.
Okay, here.
So I have, in reverse order, my number 5 was Pontypool. My number 4 was Zombieland. My number 3 was Max Brooks' book, World War Z. My number 2 was Girl with All the Gifts. And my number 1 was Dan Simmons' this year's class picture.
All right. My number 1 was the original Night of the Living Dead, because it kind of started it all. My number 2 was John Langen's How the Day Runs Down. If you're a John Langen fan, vote for me, please. John Langen's awesome. Number 3, Resident Evil, the original video game, not any of the movies, not any of that garbage. Number 4, 28 Days Later. And number 5, I Am Legend, the book, not the movie.
All right.
And starting from number 5, we talked about Walking Dead, the graphic novel, the comic. Number 4, Brian Keene's The Rising. Number 3, the soundtrack to Dawn of the Dead by Goblin. Number 2, Shaun of the Dead. And number 1, the 1978 George Romero classic, Dawn of the Dead. And honorable mention, The Battery.
Yes, check out The Battery. We all say check out The Battery. All right, here's how you're going to vote. Simply type in the name in the comments. Who had a better list? My name is Tyler. That ugly mug is Mike. And our good buddy over here is Nick. So type whose list you like the best, who you think won this year's draft. Maybe we'll do something similar next year at next year's Zombie Camp or something.
Next year's Zombie Camp.
Something along those lines. We have one last. We saved the best gift for last. What we have here is an authenticated autograph from the Scream Queen herself, PJ Souls. I will bring it close so you can see. We will send it to you in the protective care case along with the certificate of authenticity. This is one of a kind gift from us to you. If you will be one of the first people to answer this question correctly. Mike, you want to read this question?
I was going to type it out, but
okay.
I'm typing it out right.
Yeah. Sounds great.
Okay. Going back to Shaun of the Dead. In Shaun of the Dead, the main characters spend a lot of time around a particular pub. What is the name of that pub?
All you got to do is type it out below. What will happen, first person to type that out will win this wonderful autograph. I will send it to you directly from Zombie 101 here at Truman State University as part of the Joseph Baldwin Academy. It will come directly to you. I will DM you to get where I should mail this thing, and it will be yours, all for answering today's question. What is the pub featured in Shaun of the Dead?
Seems like an amazing deal, Tyler.
Yeah, I think it's a great deal, right? All we ask is maybe when you get it, if you'll take a photo of it, tweet out to us, tag Signal Horizon or the Horror Pod class. Say, man, hey, thanks for the autograph. We appreciate, you giving us some swag just for watching. So what do you guys think? Is this going to do it for the first live episode from Robeson Planetarium at this year's?
This is the first time I've seen this planetarium. This is very, very
beautiful.
beautiful.
It's very cool.
Beautiful.
Yeah.
We'd like to give a special shout out to Jared Young, who is the technician, the guy that does all of the special stuff, not only here at the planetarium, but he's also the headmaster in charge of JBA. So he gives us the great opportunity to come and talk zombies with all kinds of high school kids every year. So special shout out to Jared. Thanks so much for having us.
Thank you, Jared.
And being such a great host. And if that will do it, then I do declare
Class dismissed. Nick, you can say it this time too.
Class dismissed.
yes. Thanks for being here.
Thanks.
Have a great day. Don't let the zombies get you.
Oh, it's getting dark in here.